What is packaging design? How can we create an effective design for a product? Why is packaging design important? Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Veronica, aka Vespertilio. I am an Italian comic book author, tarot and oracle deck creator, and your spooky art teacher.
It's me again, yours truly.
While I wouldn't consider myself a designer, having worked with publishers for several years now got me into the habit of asking myself such questions and working to find the right solutions for my work. Whether it was a design for a graphic novel cover, the box for my tarot deck, or the sachet for my oracle cards, getting to understand what I wanted my audience to learn about my products at first sight was a skill I needed to develop. Today we are going to cover a few basic steps of the designing process, and while doing it we're going to start getting into the spooky vibes by designing packaging for a witch apothecary. We're going to talk about brainstorming ideas, gathering inspiration, establishing a product lineup, designing a logo, designing packaging, and lastly, creating some 3D mockups of our products. For this last step, we're going to use PACDORA, which is also the sponsor of today's video. PACDORA is a website designed for designers to help creatives bring to life their visions thanks to their 4,900 plus packaging templates, die lines, and mockups. Their templates are 100% customizable, offering you tons of materials and elements for you to use for your designs, from patterns to different fonts, as well as the possibility to download their templates and work on them on your software of choice. You'll then be able to upload your finished file and watch it come to life thanks to their 3D modeling software, where you'll be able to create realistic renderings to present your work to your audience and clients. If you're ready to kick your game in packaging design, join PACDORA at the link in my description. And by using my code VESPER, you'll be able to receive 20% off your premium membership. So thank you again, PACDORA, for partnering with me. And with that said, let's get to the video. Before we start, I just want to mention that all the steps of the designing process we're going to talk about would probably deserve a dedicated video. As I said, I am a full-time artist, but I don't consider myself really a designer. So today I'm going to share with you the information and techniques I gathered in my professional experience and career. But if you're interested in a deeper understanding of any of these steps, I highly recommend you check other videos and other creators specialized in design. With that said, let's start with step 1, brainstorming ideas. When PACDORA reached out to me to talk about our collaboration, I first felt a bit overwhelmed, for I didn't really know what to do. But then I started thinking about all the work I've done in my career, especially in this past pretty hectic couple of years. And so I started thinking about all the things I've been working on, what I like to work on, and what my audience also follows me for. Basically what you would call my personal branding. And so that's how the idea of designing packaging for a witch apothecary came to my mind. Apart from the magical, fantastic, and esoteric sound of it, a witch apothecary is pretty similar to a herbalist shop. So you would find loose herbs and plants such as cinnamon, bay leaves, mint, basil, etc., as well as tea blends, brews, oils, all 100% natural and organic. And of course, you'll also find less common products such as poisonous plants, anointment oils for your spells, and all sorts of witchy ingredients. So today we're going to mix those two aspects and create packaging for rosemary, lavender, moonflower, witch's black salt, and an extra secret product we're going to talk about later on. Now getting to step 2, gathering inspiration. So after doing a little research and establishing our ideas, we can now move to the search for inspiration. I graduated in set and costume design at the Academy of Fine Arts in Rome, and one of the most important things I learned is that a fundamental step of the designing process has to be the historical iconographic research. So if, for example, we had to design sets and costumes for a play set in Victorian era London, we of course would have to look for pictures and references linked to that specific place and time. But if that play also happened to be Dracula, of course that would require additional research on vampire imagery. Now, as much as product and packaging design is different from set and costume design, it still requires its research and its references. So we are now going to gather our inspiration and put it into a mood board. And for this process, we're going to use a Milanote board and gather our pictures on Pinterest. After spending some time collecting my references and inspiration on Pinterest, I quickly dumped them on a new board and I can now start arranging them in place. I like both messy artistic arrangements for my mood boards and very neat organized ones, but for this project I decided to go with the second one, and so I'm arranging my pictures to achieve a clean, easy to read mood board. Step 3. Sketching session. So once we have our ideas, inspiration and references, it's now time to start thinking about the elements of our designs. Now, one thing I like to do before getting to work is actually browse through my sketchbooks to see if there are any art pieces I'd like to integrate into my project. In fact, I've already talked about this before. Keeping a sketchbook and being consistent with it will inevitably result in having physical books full of inspiration and references according to your needs, art style, and preferred aesthetic. And if, like me, you also like to have finished pieces in your sketchbooks, you might end up finding the right illustrations ready to be used for your projects. So let's now see what I was able to find in my old sketchbooks and what I've been sketching to prepare myself for today's project. Since 2023, I've been using my sketchbooks also to explore occult topics and witchy themes. I use my sketchbooks to plan my oracle deck and to work on my witchy journal. So it's only natural to me to go look for some inspiration and material through these pages. There are a lot of things here that could work for this project actually, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to use this pattern I created earlier this year on all of my products. But what I really would like to integrate in this project are a series of drawings I did last year on magical plants with my character Vespertilio. There's rosemary, lavender, moonflower, and belladonna, and I had actually forgot about the mandrake, but I think I'm going to include it in my designs as well as the other ones. Now to the sketching session. I actually noticed I didn't need much, so I just did a page study on black salt where I sketched all the ingredients and then tried to draw a whole label for a small jar. Obviously, here we have a lot of mistakes and things to fix, but I think this will provide a nice base for the final piece. So, I believe we have everything we need for the next step. Step 4. Product lineup. Now, before moving to the actual designing process, I want to establish a product lineup. Basically, I'm going to decide what I'm going to create these designs for. Being this a witch apothecary, I want to keep it as eco-friendly as possible, so we are going to design paper bags, glass jars, and cardboard boxes. So for all my herbs and plants, we are going to design both a whole bag and this small label for the glass jars. We're going to then design a box to contain all these jars, and lastly we're going to work on an extra box for the bonus design. Step 5. Designing a logo. So this step is not really required per se, since a logo is usually provided by the company that hires the designer unless they specifically also book a logo design. For the sake of this video, I'm going to borrow this hat design from the cover of my witchy journal, and I'm going to use it to design the logo for our witch apothecary. For my apothecary logo, I thought of using an Ouroboros as a base perimeter for our medallion to then insert my hat and redraw parts of the ribbons to let them braid with the snake passing through the loops. This process was a little tedious, for I worked on Procreate, and as much as it is a wonderful software to draw, it doesn't have a lot of tools for more technical designing processes. Anyway, with a little patience, I was able to fix all the things out of balance and end up with a cute logo for our witchy apothecary. Last but certainly not least, it's now time to finally design our packaging and create our 3D mockups. For the various measurements, I'm using this little trick where I split my surface in half and in quarters with colored rectangles, having the magnet snap option on. Then I use them as guidelines to trace my midpoint grid. I then immediately placed my pattern on and made it darker, and then started adding the logo and testing some frames I used in other projects of mine. This first bag is going to be for Rosemary. So I'm adding my illustration and starting working on the lettering for the various texts on the bag. I really like to do this process by hand instead of using a font. I think it fits really well the witchy aesthetic and it gives a nice vintage final look. After completing this step, I went on and tried the design on PACDORA and noticed I had designed it backwards, so I moved everything to the left half of my template. Once I had the final design, I then started duplicating the elements I needed and started designing the bags for my herbs and plants. Of course, I had to arrange some things to make the various illustrations fit, but simply rearranging the text did the trick without messing the final look of the bags when all together. The black salt label was the trickiest design out of all. I really wanted to use my sketch as a base, but as you can see, I had to redraw some parts of it in order to make it look cleaner and more readable. Here I'm copying and pasting the various elements I need one by one, arranging them and resizing them according to my needs. I decided to keep the majority of the elements of my initial sketch, only leaving unused a couple of things. I only rewrote the text for the middle part and totally fixed the rest of it, but then decided to draw a paper scroll to contain some of the text of the label. After checking a couple variants on the background and cleaning things up a little, I had the final design and I'm now going to use it as a base for the labels of the glass jars for my herbs and plants. I started by removing the majority of the elements, keeping just the circular central piece with our logo. I then grabbed one of my ribbon designs, copied and pasted the text I did before and arranged it onto the ribbon. I then added my rosemary illustration and decided to bring back the paper scroll where I added a fake text as example for the part with the information about the product. I then started doing the exact same thing with every herb and plant and ended up with the complete 4 designs. Now let's bring everything back on PACDORA and start creating the mockups for our designs. After selecting your file of choice, you'll then be able to upload your pictures and arrange them online. Now, when I uploaded the one I did, I realized it needed more space out of the bleed line. Thankfully, PACDORA allows you to directly assemble your designs online. So instead of going back to fix it, I could just upload my pattern and save a PNG file of my design with a transparent background. This way, I could easily design my label directly on my mockup file. And just like that, here's the mockup for my first jar. To proceed with the other designs, there's no need to start over. You just need to go back to your workbench, copy your project, and start editing it with your next design. Now, moving to the bags, the process is basically the same. Only this time, there was no need to assemble my elements online. I could simply arrange my work on a template and easily create all of the mockups. With every step, I would always keep an eye on the 3D model window to check if the design was placed correctly on my mockup. I ended up regretting not designing an info box for the back of the bags like the one on the paper scrolls, but for the sake of this video, I will forgive myself for that. However, if this were for a professional project, they all would definitely need more work. One thing I like to do is renaming my copies so that I know exactly where to find what's done, and what's next on a list. Before moving on, I quickly got back on Procreate to design a ribbon with the shop's name to use for the upcoming mockups. I'm now going to design a box to carry my jars. Since the template is quite elaborate for this one, I decided to upload the various elements separately and arrange them online. For this mockup, I'm going to use my pattern, the logo, and the ribbon I just created. I'm placing the logo to the front and back and adding the ribbon on each side. By accidentally placing the ribbon without scaling it enough, I actually ended up finding a nice solution, having the ends of the ribbon showing up at the side of the logo. It took a little effort to place everything correctly, but thankfully guidelines and measurements pop up when placing the various elements so that you can arrange everything as needed. I just realized I forgot to film the part about the black salt jar. Thankfully, it was quite simple. Unlike the other jars, the way the label was cut out of the template didn't bother me at all, so I didn't need to design it online. I just went with my work on the mockup and it worked just fine. Lastly, I'm now opening my box in PACDORA's 3D design software and start adding my jars. This was the moment of truth, for I didn't check the measurements beforehand, so the jars could have been too big or too small for the box. But miraculously, the box fitted like a glove. The 3D software is very easy to use. You just need to select the corresponding arrow to move your object to the sides, up and down, or to rotate it. Now, as anticipated, I wanted to create an extra design for our Witch Apothecary. And what better idea than providing a tool to work with our ingredients for our spells? So we are now going to design the box for our own cauldron, with an extra touch of Vespetilu vibes. I decided to integrate some extra witchy elements by making the legs in the shape of crescent moons and the lid handle in the shape of a bat, to which I took inspiration for this little baby's name, Vesper Cauldron. This cauldron is not meant for cooking meals, but rather to place and mix the ingredients for your spells. For this reason, it's going to be quite a small one, where you'll be able to burn your herbs and incense while your dinner cooks in a bigger cauldron on your stove. After completing the page, I digitalized it to bring it on Procreate, where I cleaned up and separated the various elements, creating also a version of the cauldron with the lid on and designing other ribbons to place the text. Once I had every element I needed, I uploaded them on PACDORA. Again, since this template was very elaborate, I'm going to arrange my design on its mockup directly online. To be able to easily follow the die lines, I will place all the elements I just designed first and only lastly add the pattern on the background. And just like that, we are done with all of our designs. And finally, we can now put all of our mockups together and create our final product lineup. For this last step, I'm going to use all of the models I created previously to arrange them into a single picture. I personally decided to go with this solution, but to anyone interested, keep in mind that PACDORA not only allows you to render pictures of your mockups, but also offers you the possibility to create videos with different animations for your models. I also decided to browse through PACDORA's assets to find an extra element to enrich the final rendering. Now all that's left to do is take my time to arrange my designs as I please and have a final picture ready to be exported. If I wanted, I could have easily selected the scenery for this step. But you're about to see why I went with a transparent background. And with that said, we are now ready to open our Witch Apothecary. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope this was fun to watch and that you were able to learn something new from it. I'm really happy and satisfied with how this project turned out, and I'm actually considering printing the labels for my own jars. If you'd like to dive in a similar project, remember you can join PACDORA at the link in my description, and by using my code VESPER, you'll receive 20% off your premium membership. If you'd like to help this channel grow, you can simply do it by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. And getting back to witchy things, my very first tarot deck, Vesper Tarot, is now available for purchase, and you can get it at the link in my description. Also, if you like my art and content and would like to see more of my work, consider joining my newsletter where I share weekly updates on my digitalized sketchbook. If you stayed till this point, thank you very much. I will see you very soon with more art videos. In the meantime, let's make art. Bye!